Hi, I'm Samara Akpovo. I will be sharing about collaborative online learning across borders, which is a version of COIL. I attended a COIL training back in 2017 at Washington State. And from there, I approached my colleagues at the University of Auckland and the University of Melbourne to ask them if they would like to try using COIL. Since then, we've changed the name to CoLab. And CoLab is a network of educators, early childhood educators, that prepare teachers who use COIL within their courses. So COIL is a foundation and CoLab is the name of our group. So what are the tasks? We've been doing this for 5 years. We've had over 170 students at UTK participate in CoLab, and probably over, 600 students altogether participate. We do a 4-week unit, and the reason for the 4-week unit is that we had to find a common time through the semesters that would work for all the different partners. So New Zealand and Auckland, they have different semester dates than we do in the US. And so we only had this 4-week window where we could do COIL. And this consists of doing a threaded discussion and Canvas catalog. Part A is a welcome. Part 2 is sharing childhood memories. Part 3, they document the day in the life of a child or a teacher in their setting. In Part D, they examine a social justice issue. And this is a group project that they post. We put them in small groups. And so the small group does this project, and then they post it to the larger group. This is shown here. This is an example of when we did have about 220 students. We had 22 groups. And for this one, I had the smallest class, which was 22 students. And so that's why we had 22 groups, to make sure that there was one student from UTK in each of the groups. Some people are worried about doing COIL with large lecture type of courses, but it can be done with a large number of students. And the way to do that is to work in small groups. You do need a GTA to help moderate the discussions. But it did work, and we had some good findings come out of this. Now I'm going to play a video where a student shares what she learned from participating in this COIL CoLab project.
No, that's great. I wanted to ask you, Feifei, one of the students once said to me, this is all great, Sonia. We're learning so much about everybody overseas, but the most important learning for her was that she was learning so much about the people that had sat next to her in her classes for 3 years. And they hadn't talked about these kind of things because they seemed so kind of basic.
Yeah.
But it is very fundamental. The relationships that we have to ourselves and to each other as teachers who are other, even to ourselves, that was a really important insight for her. And I wondered if you had something more to say about that.
Yeah, I have the exact same feeling as I mentioned, that there are otherness in ourselves when we actually communicate and open ourselves to look at those taken for granted routines or phenomenon around us. For example, take the concept of play as one example. And we shared about our childhood games and how we played. And suddenly those topics expanded from the exact activities we did to our understanding of the space for children, the freedom of children, and parents' anxiety, and the social, we call them the maybe changes or culture differences in all kinds of things. And what was funny is that even we also had classmates coming from China, the same place where I came from, but we had very different understanding of how play or what play means to us or to children. And especially when we move from one place to another culture, like we are studying early childhood education in New Zealand. And when you look at how children are doing in New Zealand and think about what our children or what we did in the past, it would be all like very rich and very in-depth discussion. So that's, yeah, I hope that is just something in relation to what you mentioned about the question. But yeah, all those questions or discussions were quite like unexpected, I have to say. At first, it was like a simple question, or maybe take it very basic or take it for granted. But if we actually try to combine what we discussed with the reading materials, with the topics, with other learning tasks, suddenly the simple questions became quite enriching and thought-provoking. Yeah.
Okay, that is...
No, that's
the end of my presentation. I put a link to the article that we wrote. Actually, Fei Fei, who you saw there on the video, is one of the co-authors. Okay, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to the questions that come later.